Welcome back, everybody, to another thrilling episode of Thrive Shoot Program with Coach 2J. This is your host, Jeremy Jones. Today we're going to talk about keeping the bar close on deadlifts and how we want to explain this to people, as well as this workout with a lot of fun movements and a little bit on the longer side with a game changer. So one of the things that we see happening with deadlifts is obviously there's going to be some knee bend, but usually not a whole lot, right? There's usually we want that bar mid-foot. The knee's going to bend, oh, that's a really small barbell. It's a square barbell. And that bar has to get up past the knee. So I'm going to draw this again, actually. So usually if there's a little bit more knee bend, if somebody has some mobility issues, the bar needs to travel through the knee. And so what people tend to do is they'll rock forward so the weight is more on the balls of their feet, as they hinge forward. And for every millimeter that bar moves away from the shins, that puts a lot more pressure and strain on the low back and the spinal erectors. And so this is going to make the bar feel a lot heavier. Now, this is easy to do when we're going slow on a heavy deadlift, but it's something that people tend to not be aware of when we're doing higher reps and higher volumes in a Metcon. And what they'll notice is, or what they won't notice is their back is starting to round because they are fatigued. And then they tweak their back, or their back's really tight for the next couple of days because they were losing, even if they maintain the lumbar, it was working way harder than it needed to. And so what we want to make sure that people do is as they're doing these deadlifts is they keep that bar right next to the shin. So the bar goes right past the knees, and they're going to bend it, and they're going to keep pulling that bar back. And we do that by engaging the lats, right? So they should be pulling the bar back and controlling it with their lat muscles. And that's going to help keep the bar close to the body and put less strain. This person has a really small torso. And it puts a lot less strain on their lumbar, right? So if we go here, and we have their arms coming down, the lat muscle is the muscle that connects the arm all the way down to the lower vertebrae. It's this huge sheet of muscle here, and the fibers run this way, and so that's what that's what it's designed to do. And by pulling that bar back with the lat muscles, that's going to help control the bar and put a lot less strain on the low back. Now, in today's workout, we're doing 15 at a decent weight. We're going to do 4 or 5 rounds. So 5 rounds at 15 is let's see, 70 reps. 75 reps. Yeah, 4 rounds is 60 reps, and then 5 rounds is 75 reps. But we are breaking it up with these other movements, right? So we've got box jumps, toes to bar, and a run. So there's going to be, about 5 minutes per round. So they're going to be doing one round of deadlifts every 4 or 5 minutes. So it shouldn't be too brutal on their backs. As you guys know, I'm not a huge fan of high volume deadlifts in Metcons, especially at significant loads. But if they can keep that bar really close to the shins, that'll help. Now, I think part of the reason why people don't like to focus on keeping the bar close to their shins is also because they're worried about hitting their shins, which can happen when you're going fast. So this is where wearing pants or long socks will help kind of prevent scraping the shins or whatever. The other thing that I found that really helps from a coaching cue standpoint with doing fast clean snatches and deadlifts is if they have a target in mind. So if you were to have people when they're doing this, I'm going to try to draw a shoe and not totally butcher it like I normally do. So you have the laces of the shoe, or the place where the shoe, the tongue of the shoe is. If they think about bringing that bar on their laces and even kind of above the laces of the shoe, or even where the knot of the laces is, that's going to help them. So they're gonna hinge and wait on bending their knees until it goes below the knee, and then they're going to lower that bar straight down onto their foot. That can help them keep the bar close. And the same thing, and then when they come up, they're going to think about, again, engaging those lats and keeping it really close to the body. It doesn't have to touch the shins or the knees, but they should be doing it in a controlled enough manner to where it might even be brushing, or is very, very close, right? So we know as that bar starts to drift out farther and farther, again, we start to see people with end up with that fatigue low back. All right, so we've got our warm up here. We're gonna warm up with a run with a med ball or some jump rope, and then we're gonna do some ankle mobility because we are doing some box jumps and running. So I want to make sure people's ankles are feeling good, heel cores are feeling good. And don't forget the bottom of the foot too. You can mobilize the bottom of the foot as well, not just working on ankle flexion. That can also help people that are having maybe some ankle or knee issues, working the bottom of the foot. And then to warm up, we're going to work on doing some sets of 3 straight leg deadlifts out of the rack. So this isn't a movement that we see come up too often. So it'll be fun for people to experiment. And one of the reasons why we're doing this is people can, again, use a heavier load than they plan on using in the workout, and they're going to work on, again, and bringing that bar back. So when they're doing their the straight leg deadlift, we don't necessarily want to see this where the bar's way out in front of the body, right? So the knees are, and remember, straight leg is not totally locked. Their knees should be unlocked a little bit, but they aren't taking that bar way out from the body. What we actually want to do is bend the knees a little bit more, and then they should be trying to pull the bar back. So their arms should actually be at a slight angle back, and we're trying to get people's lats involved in the movement, right? So that's what we're trying to accomplish here with this skill practice warm up, the straight leg deadlifts, is we want to, it doesn't have to be totally touching their thighs and their knees as they go down, but we do want to see if you're looking at it from the side, their arms shouldn't be straight. They should actually be using their lats to pull that bar back against the body, and that's going to help them prime those muscles for when we're doing the deadlifts in the Metcon. They should hinge enough to where they should really feel the stretch though. So we're trying to also go through a very full range of motion. It's not about how much weight you can lift in this case. It's about using a significant load. And people, they should work up to a challenging set of. And in this case, that would mean something like they could do 6 reps if they had to, right? If it was like a max effort set, they could do 6 or 8. So it's not something that, we know what their maxes are. It's not really going to correlate to their absolute deadlift max, but it's going to be far lighter in this case. And then we want to make sure that they're hinging at their hip and they're keeping their back and their pelvis are moving together as one, and then they're really hitting that deep full range of motion while engaging their lats. All right, then we're going to do Lone Runaway, which we haven't done for a while. It's been a couple years, but we're going to spend, its health is 4 rounds, athletic and performance is 5 rounds. And so if somebody is unsure, have them plan on doing 4 rounds. And if they finish this and they finish it in under 19 minutes, then they should be able to add the 5th round in, right? Because they have essentially, what is that, 8 minutes to get through the next round. If they can do the next round, if you believe they can do the next round in 8 minutes, they should go ahead and do it. So if they're on their 4th round, you can tell them to slow down a little bit because they're going to do a 5th round to prepare themselves mentally. That's probably a good idea. So we're doing 15 deadlifts, and we can either do them with the barbell or with the kettlebells, which can kind of change it up and make it a little bit more interesting. Then we've got 15 box jumps. Not a crazy amount, but people should be doing jump up, step downs as usual. 15 toes to bar. Now this is a pretty large set of toes to bar, so people are going to want to break these up. It's going to save their grip for the later rounds, especially with the combination of deadlifts and toes to bar, and make sure they understand how to change their hands up. We did some toes to bar skill work earlier in the week. That's going to help you as a coach know where people should be at. People themselves will know what sort of progression they should be thinking about in doing this workout. And remember that it's usually best if people can do if they can do a couple toes to bar, that they just start each round with a couple actual toes to bar, right? They should always start in the earlier rounds or even the beginning of the rounds. If they're feeling fresh enough and they can do it competently enough, they should do a few reps where they can do it, and then they can drop down to something like hanging knee raises or a partial range of motion toes to bar to keep the intensity up and to keep moving. But then the next round they shouldn't go to that. They should try to do a couple toes to bar, even if they have to slow down and do a couple singles with 10 or 15 seconds rest. That is going to progress them better, and they're going to get more of the workout if they do it that way versus just, oh, I can only do 1 or 2 toes to bar total in a workout. I'm not even going to try them, right? Instead of at least trying one at the beginning of every round. And then we go to our run, and we've got a indoor option here. And then another one of the couple other fun things about this workout is we've got heavier deadlifts and then bar muscle ups instead of toes to bar. And again, people can start with bar muscle ups and then drop to toes to bar later on if they want. So this becomes a very interesting workout for those advanced folks, because then it becomes a 125, 185 deadlift and then 5 or 7 bar muscle ups per round. This becomes a spicy workout. Now there is a game changer. So remember, the game changers are when there's a window of time. If they finish before a certain time, they get to try to change their score. They can they can change the game. So in this case, the window is pretty early on, and you'll notice here, generally speaking, it almost always is performance scaling only. But I wanted to make sure people knew this, because if someone does, I don't want people doing 4 rounds and then going over and doing the row, right? Um, that kind of defeats the purpose of the workout. If they do 4 rounds and they finish it in 21 or 22 minutes, they should probably do the 5th round, right? This is the 4 rounds is for people just so that, like, beginners or people who are deconditioned aren't trying to do too many deadlifts or box jumps or whatever when they shouldn't be, right? It's going to limit them to 60 reps instead of 75. But in this case, so people who are doing this performance scaling, now if they finish at 23:45, they technically have 15 seconds to go over and try to get a calorie. But obviously, it's mainly for those people who finish in that 21, 22 minute range. If they finish before this, they can't do anything, right? So if they finish at 20 minutes, they have to wait until minute 21 for this window, and then they have 3 minutes to get as many calories as they can. And then just for comparison purposes, just for bragging rights or whatever, they can, or even comparing to their old score, they get to subtract 1 second from their time for logging purposes. Ultimately, if you're using a logging system like Zen Planner or Beyond the Whiteboard or Push Press or Sugar WOD, they should log the raw score in and then put their game changer calories in there. They shouldn't put it in with the subtraction. But that's oh, it doesn't. I don't have the time per round on here. I'll add that on here so you guys can see that as well. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot, and thrive on.